When I started talking about politics on PBD Podcast, and it was scary, like, whoa! And then all of a sudden, the level of people that came out, because you had the brass to talk about things that matters to them. It's very important.
Bobby Kennedy and Donald Trump, these two guys from polar opposite ends of the spectrum get together. Find this sliver and have agreement. This Make America Healthy Again movement. Highest rates of childhood cancer. There's no such thing as Democratic or Republican children. There's just children. And you look at the state of our nation right now. We're the sickest, fattest, most disease-ridden nation in the world. How is it that people are so myopic and not see the message that he's driving?
You're going to have people that want to have nothing to do with you if you choose a side. There are certain shifts that happen in business and in life. If you're not able to adjust with that shift and you're too afraid, you'll be left behind.
We made a very, very conscious decision. We said, we're teaching people how to better their lives. If we're not doing that for ourselves, then how authentic is our message?
As long as you talk about what you believe in and you do it enough times, the right people will find you and learn how to use you.
For someone like me who actually wants to put entire power of my platform and my voice behind it, do you go all in because this is something that you believe in?
It's a good question. By far, Gary, the most important thing is
Hey guys, welcome back to the Ultimate Human Podcast. I'm your host, human biologist Gary Brecka, where we go down the road of everything anti-aging, biohacking, longevity, and everything in between. And today, as you can tell, I'm in a different studio. I actually thought I was walking into an airplane hangar. So I was like, this dude's got an airplane. He shoots the podcast in his hangar because we're right next to the private FBO here. But this is a guest that I've wanted to have on for a long time. I actually connected with him face-to-face for the first time at a UFC fight. Dana White introduced us backstage, and we agreed to get together. It was a hard time lining our schedules up, but now it's finally happened. I could not be more excited. Welcome to the podcast, Patrick Bet-David.
It's great to be here, man.
Dude, it's great to be here. We just shot your podcast with me.
2.5, which, by the way, was absolutely sick. Everybody in the back is just talking still about how to podcast. I drank hydrogen water for the first time.
Yes,
ever.
you did.
And
how do you
great.
feel?
I feel great.
Yeah, I told you. Like, it drops your inflammation. It gives your brain that break that it needs, kind of wakes you up. It's almost like caffeine, but it's non-stimulatory. I'm a huge, huge fan of hydrogen gas, hydrogen tablets in your water.
I'm going to go 30 days. I'm committing to it. 30 days.
All right. I'm going to send you 60-day supply. You go 30 days. And you let me know honestly what you think after that 30 days.
I definitely will.
I promise you it's such a game changer. There are so many directions that we could go on this podcast. I mean, I've actually been a fan of yours quite a while. I love the authenticity in your message. I love how direct you are. You're an incredible interviewer. I mean, it was one of the best podcasts that I've ever been on because I felt like you really drew out of me what the audience wanted to hear. One of the common themes that I find runs through all of my podcasts, and I interview some of the brightest minds in longevity, aging, biooptimization, whatever you want to call it, is that they solve some kind of major problem in their life. And because of that, they're so passionate, they're so driven, they sort of find God's purpose for them in some kind of event in their life. And there was a tipping point. A lot of times it's, they had Lyme disease and they couldn't get help from the modern medical system. They fixed it themselves, or they overcame drug or alcohol addiction, and now they're one of the biggest proponents and biggest voices in drug and alcohol addiction. In your case, you have this big booming business voice, and I'd like to know, for my audience that doesn't know you, what is your story, your message, your purpose, and how did you figure that out?
So you know how comedians, sometimes when you read their story, whether it's Kevin Hart or Joe or Chappelle or any of these guys, they had a tough upbringing. And the way they cope with it is through fun and laughter, right? Let's just laugh at everything. Steve Harvey, a lot of these guys, right? And you're like, wow, no wonder. You have to laugh because pressures are so high, there's nothing to look forward to. For me, when you're asking about like a driver, what moved me, it wasn't drugs. It wasn't any of that stuff. It was, we were poor. We lived in a country that we couldn't say anything. We were frightened of living in Iran. I lived there for 10 and a half years. We escaped 6 weeks after Khomeini died. He died June 3rd, 89. We left July 15th of 89. We went to Germany. I lived at a refugee camp. We're escaping control, right? We're escaping dictatorship. We're escaping tyranny. And they were in Germany. And then we come to the States here. and it was a dream to come down here. So it's like, oh my God, finally we are free. So that feeling of freedom, I didn't experience it until we were on that Lufthansa flight leaving Iran, and the pilot and the flight attendant says you can officially order alcohol. That was the moment that I felt free, because we're past.
How old
the
are
board.
you then?
I was 10 years and 7 months, 9 months.
Wow.
Yeah. When they said that, I'm like, oh my God, what is this? We landed in Germany. First time in my life I had pineapple, and I had banana, because that was rich man's fruit. If you had pineapple and bananas in Iran, you were rich.
Wow.
And then we came down here, and I joined the Army after high school. I was in the Army for a few years, 3 years. I got out. I wanted to be a bodybuilder.
So you were an airborne.
I was at airborne. Yeah. Best decision I made, by the way. For me, I really needed my military. Drill sergeants put me in my place. Drill Sergeant Green and Drill Sergeant Purtle. I was able to find Purtle on Facebook, but not Green. They put me in my place. It was very, very good for me to be in the military. Then I got out. I said, I want to win Mr. Olympia. So I went to the Mr. Olympia, and I started asking the guys, all these Aaron Baker, Cormier, all these guys, what do I need to do to compete? What do I need to put in my body? And then after and they were very honest about it with me. I'm like, dude, I'm 6'4.5". I'm tall. Most of these guys are
big guy.
5'8", 5'9". And in bodybuilding, you can't be too tall. If you are, you have to be 350, 400 off season. That's too much weight on my heart. My dad had heart attacks. So I'm like, I'm not doing bodybuilding. I got out of bodybuilding. I started working on Morgan Stanley Dean Witter day before 9/11, went into financial services, eventually started my own insurance company, grew it from 66 agents to 50,000 agents, and I sold it 2.5 years ago. And part-time, I started a media company, then consulting from it, and now we have this whole playground here that we're building.
Yeah, dude. And you've got a true media platform. Some people think of it just as a podcast. I actually just joined your Connect, which is pretty incredible. It's just a way for you to have more and deeper, meaningful connection with your audience, because I'm always trying to amplify my message. And I was really fascinated by this this app that you've developed, because it allows people to have direct connectivity to you and allows you to kind of scale your voice. So I appreciate that. But so what is the impact, the direction? What is the meaning behind all of this? I mean, in a perfect world, is Patrick Bet-David going to train entrepreneurs, inspire entrepreneurs to build better businesses? What's the objective of what you're building here?
That's a good question. So for me, I've made money, and I've made money. I've had exits. I've had 8-figure exits, and then we had our multi-9-figure exit, which was life-changing. So when you have a life-changing situation like that, I didn't buy a new car when I sold my business. I didn't buy a new house. I was already living in my house. There's nothing that I bought which was significant to change my lifestyle, right? Yes, minority owner of the Yankees. I had 2 rounds that I was able to buy into. Great. So spring training right now, I'm talking to the CFO of Yankees to see when I'm going to be going to be there to see the games and the players and all this stuff. That happened. A few things that happened. But for me, I want to go on a 40-year run. When I watched the insurance industry and what I was in, I got 4 kids. I got a 13-year-old, 11-year-old, 8-year-old girl, 3-year-old girl. So 2 boys, 2 girls. I want to build something that later on, selfishly, I want my kids to want to be in business with me, or they start a company that is within the holding company. They're working somewhere. I want the family to be close. This has always been a dream of mine.
I love that, man. I'm the same way.
Yeah, when I was watching you with your son doing 100, you said, how many miles did he run? 180 miles?
184 miles.
That's insane to me when I'm watching, 24 years old doing what he's doing and going around Antarctica. You're saying minus 48 degrees. And I'm watching a picture of you and him with the arms next to each other. That's the juice of life.
Oh,
right?
Dude, it's the best.
That's the juice of life. So, business allows you to do that. So indirectly, my pastor talks about there's 7 mountains to climb. Dudley Rutherford, in life, in business. He says 1 mountain is business, 1 mountain is family, 1 mountain is church, 1 mountain is military, 1 mountain is media. He's breaking down these 7 mountains. He says the most important and powerful mountain, yet the hardest one to climb is media. He says, because if you want to make true impact and be able to go to the masses, you have to go through media, because it's 0 to 1 million. Church is 0 to 20,000, 0 to 3,000, 0 to 200, right? But this is 0 to 1 million with media. And I said, interesting. I never thought about it that way. So I said, let me start creating content part-time. I did. And then later on, in 2017, one of our viewers called Mario, sent an email saying, I'd like to get into an engagement with Pat, and we want to hire him as a consultant. I'm like, we don't run a consulting firm. He says, I said, let's just go back and give him a dollar amount, let them walk away, because we don't even know how to take the payment right now. He goes back, he says $5,000 an hour. I says, great, we'd like to book him for 3 hours. And I'm like, really? He said, yes. I said, Mario, what do they want from me? He says, honestly, I don't know, but they want to come. I said, okay, let me find out what this is. So I comes in. Naturally, I like doing needs analysis. What's needs analysis? How long you been married? How'd you guys meet? You know, who were you in high school? What sport did you play? Were you the captain? Were you the, 4.0 GPA? You know, were you better relationship with mom or dad? Dad wasn't there. What happened with mom? Did mom remarry? I'm curious. I'm doing needs analysis. So I start doing needs analysis on him and his business. And at the end, I said, okay, this is mine. I got 30 minutes. I learned about your business. What questions you got for me? He starts asking questions. And by the time it was done, I said, I think we made this guy $10 million today. Great. Let's see what happens. Follows up. Boom. Follows up again. Boom. Follows up again. Yeah, we're actually making direct impact. We don't need any equity. There is no commitment from you to us like, hey, give us 10%, we'll do this. I don't want any of that stuff because that gets us in different kind of relationships. So eventually, that led into 10 people calling, 20 people calling. Then Valuetainment started growing, and we ended up getting, I don't know how many YouTube subscribers we got right now, 10 plus million subscribers between PBD Podcast and Valuetainment.
I saw that, man. You guys are just absolutely killing it.
And then I started talking, and I took a few risks. One of the risks was, I started, talking about politics 4.5 years ago. And everybody said, big mistake, don't do it. Big mistake, don't do it. Big mistake, don't do it. I said, look, I started talking politics at 42 years old, 41 and a half years old. I said, the reason why I did is because when I was creating content at 35, my audience was 20 to 35 years old, okay? So they're now aging with me. If they're aging with me and you're 41, 42, what questions are you asking? Where do I put my kids in school? How do I raise them? Taxes I'm paying? Who do I vote for? What's going on with you? You're asking the important questions in life. So I said, look, I have an opinion. Let's talk about it. And then next thing you know, that grew. And then that led to, us building a business now, the holding company with Monect. You're talking about Monect earlier. To me, the biggest thing with Monect is when I think about my life, I think about the amount of times I networked and I met people. There was a guy that was the most incredible networker, Gary. I've never seen anybody work a room the way this guy worked a room. We'd go into a room and he'd go boom, and then boom, 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 and then boom, boom, and then boom. And then we're meeting the owner. We're in the private room in the back. And I'm like, wait a minute. How the hell did this guy get from this guy to this guy? Who do you know? So do you know this person? So I said, there's power in networking. So I took some of the stuff that he had with networking and I started looking at tools. Back in the days, AOL chat or Beep or big brick phones, and then it became email and social media and MySpace and Friendster and Facebook and YouTube and all this stuff. And then you look at the response rate, and I realized at one point when I'm talking to my lawyer, he charged me, I had a 7-minute call with the guy. He billed me for 30 minutes. And I said, listen, we had a 7-minute call. It's not a 30-minute call. Why are you charging me up? He says, because minutes roll up. I said, not to 30 minutes.
Minutes roll up.
They don't roll up to 30 minutes. Anyways, I said, what do you charge by the minute? He says, no lawyer charges by the minute. I said, I'm going to build an app or a website where I get to pay people by the minute. So do you have a minute to connect? Let's Monect. And that's how Monect started.
That's how
Purely.
Monect started.
So I get to pay you. Yeah, imagine how many people want to ask you a question. They get to pay for it because they're respecting your time. You can't get back to all the emails. You can't get back to all the DMs. You can't get back to all the answers on Twitter. You simply cannot. You have billions of eyeballs that you're getting right now. But on Monect, somebody can say, Gary, I value your time. I have this question. What do you think I ought to do? These are my levels. Here's what I'm thinking. Can we do a 15-minute call? And if the person wants to pay for it, they can. But they're respecting your time. So the speed of 0 to getting in contact with somebody like you accelerated through Monect. So all of these things together, feeding each other, turn into the holding company that we have.
Wow, because it's I've always said that the information that I have doesn't belong to me. I've always felt that God revealed His purpose to me, and that was to take the ultra complicated, make it simple, and communicate to the masses, and to really get a message to the masses, to really try to make an impact on humanity. And I've struggled with how do I scale this message? Initially I thought you can't do it through just simple one-on-ones because there's only so many. So selfishly, I'm gonna hijack my own podcast here for a second, get some business advice. My wife and I, we founded our little company about 9 years ago. We took over a bankrupt vitamin shop in a strip mall. And we had this dream of building a functional medicine clinic, which turned out, came to fruition. And I also started The Ultimate Human. It's a podcast. You're on it right now. But I want to amplify my message to the masses. And I don't really know anything about social media. I have a social media team, but like you'll see when I post, I misspell things, I tag the wrong people. Like I don't get it, and so it's not my forte. But the message is my forte. I mean, what advice would you give to someone like me that's continuing to try to amplify the message to build the community? I mean, people tell me I should start like a network marketing company. I mean, I don't want to take advantage of people to get the message, but I want to amplify it as much as possible.
Yeah, so I think the least important thing is the social media team and the how-to. That's the least important.
If you want protein to build lean muscle, but without the caloric impact or need to cut, you need Perfect Amino. It's pure essential amino acids, the building blocks of proteins, in a precise form and ratio that allows for near 100% utilization in building lean muscle and no caloric impact. So we build protein 6 times as much as whey, but without the excess body fat we normally get during bulking. This is the new era of protein supplementation, and it's real. If you want to build lean muscle without having to cut, you need Perfect Amino. Now let's get back to the Ultimate Human podcast. Dude, okay. my social media team is standing in the room. They love it.
And I'm telling you right now, that's the least important thing. And I know they're probably sitting there thinking, come on, what are you thinking about all this? Let me explain to you why. Okay. And then this will make sense. So, for example, if you have a message, the audience will find you. And this is kind of how it works. Yesterday, we have a 28-year-old man here, who he became known on social media when he was a 17-year-old kid. His name is Nicolas Ferreira, okay? He posted a video last week on Instagram in Portuguese. I want to show you how many likes it got, but before I do, I want you to guess how many likes and how many views this video got. Just take a wild guess how many likes it got on Instagram. Okay,
let's see this thing.
Just take a wild guess. What do you think it is? How many likes it got?
This he just posted a video on Instagram.
Just posted a video on Instagram. This guy's a congressman in Brazil.
He's a congressman.
He's a congressman in Brazil, the youngest congressman, 28 years old.
Okay.
And he posted a message. How many likes do you think it got? I'm going to show it to you right now.
150,000.
Okay, I want you to see this. Look at my phone here. Look at my phone here over here. How many likes is that?
8.8 million?
8.8 million likes. Look how many comments. Can you show the comments, Rob? 880,000 comments.
What?
That video got. Look at the number of views it got. 327 million views.
Holy cow.
By the way, it is the most viewed video on Instagram in 2025.
What?
This is the power. So watch this.
And it's in Portuguese. I mean, the Portuguese.
That's the point. It's a smaller distribution than what we have. I'm in Brazil with him, in Brasilia, the capital. We're walking around with him. You can't go anywhere without people stopping this guy. No one knew who this guy was like this. Why has he exploded? Because today, if you have a message, the audience will find you. Ron Paul told me maybe one of the most profound things when I interviewed him 7-8 years ago. I said, Ron, you're a person that delivers babies. How did you go from being this guy to now end the Fed, economy, libertarian, all? How did that happen? He says, when I'm delivering babies, one day there's a speaker about finance, and a friend invites me to go listen to him. So I go listen to him. When I listen to him speak, this guy's phenomenal. He starts recommending me books. Every single time he speaks, I order all the books. One by one, I'm reading the books. And I go back a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. He says, eventually, I am so obsessed, I cannot get this information out of my mind. I said, so what did you do? He said, so I went back to ask the guy a question. I said, hey, all this info, I'm a doctor. I'm a gynecologist. I give birth to babies.
Yeah.
But I can't stop thinking about all this stuff you do. What do I do with all this information? The guy gave him the most profound advice. He said, let me tell you how the world works. As long as you talk about what you believe in and you do it enough times, the right people will find you and learn how to use you.
Wow.
What happened to Ron Paul? DOGE, the Department of Governmental Efficiencies, may be an idea that Ron Paul came up with many years ago. Think about it. Think about what his son does. Think about what happened to him writing a book, End the Fed. He's one of the most influential politicians in the last 10, 20 years. This guy ends up raising $6 million on MySpace in 24 hours, breaks the record for $6 million before he ran for president. I think this is in 04 or 03. Ron Paul is who we're talking about. Where am I going with this? You have a message, and the audience keeps finding you. And we're going to come to you to find a message. Then the next part is, all right, the more you can monetize this message, the more you can reach others. So how do you do that? Do I turn that into a business? Do I turn that into a show? Do I turn that into a consulting firm? Do I turn that into a product line? What do I turn that into? So now you said network marketing, right? For me, with insurance, when I was at Bally's, I watched what Bally's did. Then I went to Morgan Stanley. I watched what Morgan Stanley did. Then I went to Transamerica World Financial. I watched what they did. I'm like, oh my God, I love this. The combination of all these different companies, what they're doing. Network marketing, the most basic thing about network marketing is that you get to take a product and sell it for less and use a percentage of it to pay override. That's one of the ways of getting to the consumer. Another way is ads. Another way is social media. Another way is direct sales. That business model is different. But by far, Gary, the most important thing is the message being a message that resonates with the world, and you have a way of delivering it, and you know how to do it.
Yeah, I appreciate that so much. I usually don't go into the business on my podcast, but I built this course, and I was like, should I just sell this course, or should I build a community and give it away? And I think that people, what I realize is that if you're trying to make an impact on people's lives, you can't just educate them, and you can't just inspire them. You have to educate them and inspire them to take some kind of action, make a transformation. Like I talk about taking control of your morning routine. I talk about, sleep habits, bookending your sleep. All of these things that were practical advice that people can utilize for free. And I think I've gotten known for that. Try sort of like the poor man's solution to optimal health. And it's really started to resonate. I built a VIP community that I charge $97 a month for, and it's exploding right now because I take large amounts of my time and I pour it into this community. But as the community grows, it doesn't take more of my time, And so that's the way that I've been trying to scale. And I know there's a lot of people that I respect in this industry that are on the same mission that I am to change the face of humanity that really need this kind of advice from you, because none of us, we're scientists and biohackers and longevity researchers and what have you, but we don't have the skill set and the social media to really try to amplify our message. I normally don't go down the political bandwagon, but I want to, because you're so unabashedly not afraid of politics, I've got to open up this door with you. Bobby Kennedy and Donald Trump, maybe two of the most initially polar opposite human beings on the opposite political ends of the spectrum. Find this sliver where they overlap and have agreement, this Make America Healthy Again movement. Highest rates of childhood cancer in recorded history. We're the sickest, fattest, most disease-ridden nation in the world. We're ranked 66th in the world in life expectancy. These two guys from polar opposite ends of the spectrum get together, right? Bobby Kennedy's family basically disowns him. His entire party turns against him. When he was inaugurated, not a single Democrat even voted for him. I actually found that when I went to the inauguration, and I also went to the Maha Ball, and I was there with Bobby Kennedy. The day that I posted this picture, 47,000 people instantly stopped following me on Instagram. I had 47,000 people delete.
You're kidding me.
It was like a straight cliff. Wow. Now I had 153,000 pick it up afterwards, but I had 43,000 people stop following me, and I was talking to the team, and I was like, "What did I do wrong?" Like, trust me, I'm not at the extreme ends of the spectrum. I'm not pushing any specific agenda. I never get political online, but I was like, "What is it that makes people so myopic that?" Like, what side of the fence are you on? He's trying to reduce the rates of childhood cancer, trying to clean up the food supplies, trying to get the corruption out of our nutritional research. How do you watch and listen to that man? Now, if you want to talk about what he thinks about big oil and green energy, I get it. Or transgender women in sports. These are like hot topics. Abortion. We're talking about the nation's children. He says things like, "There's no such thing as Democratic or Republican children. There's just children." And you look at the state of our nation right now, ranked 66th in the world in life expectancy, spending the most amount of money of any other civilized nation in the world. How is it that people are so myopic that they can actually hate this person for being politically affiliated with somebody else and not see the message that he's driving?
Yeah. So, I mean, a part of that is normal. You know, I remember when I started talking about politics on PBD Podcast, I'm like, look, I want to talk current events. I got some questions. I got some thoughts. If you like it, great. You don't like it, let's see what happens. You know what happened? Initially, I took a massive dip initially. And it was scary. Like, whoa.
Yeah.
What just happened?
That's what happened to me with that picture.
That was weird. And then all of a sudden, Gary, the level of people that came out because they felt that you had the brass to talk about things that matters to them. They're like, let me just tell you, I used to follow your business content, but the fact that you went over here, I'm like, what is he doing with this stuff? I respect the fact that you're talking about because I'm going through it right now. It's very important. When people stop me now, they don't stop me for the business content. They don't stop me now for entrepreneurship. They don't stop me. They stop me purely for what we talk about on PBD Podcast. I can't even tell you how much that is right now. I'm not even kidding with you. It's a very different thing that happened. However, so let's go through it. So in life, you're either going to find people that are interested in wanting to improve and entertain other ideas. You know what? Let me see what he has to say. Let me see what he has to say. Let me see what he has to say. You're going to have people that want to have nothing to do with you if you choose a side, okay? Mm-hmm. And you're going to have those that are going to be with you no matter what. Your ride or dies. Your ride or die community is always going to be the smallest community, okay? The people that want to have nothing to do with you can change their mind years later. They may start off saying, man, I can't stand what he has to say. And then, you know what? He's growing on me. You know what? I like the guy. It's kind of what happens, right?
I don't go away. I have the same message over and over again.
So the part with the audience is that's their choice, what they're going through. Also, sometimes as we're living our lives and certain things happen, there are certain shifts that happen in business and in life. If you're not able to adjust with that shift and you're too afraid, you'll be left behind. For example, look at Bobby Kennedy. What's he doing now? He's got probably one of the top 3 biggest jobs in the world. I think it's fair to say in our administration.
And he's up against some of the biggest, well-funded
enemies, big pharma, all these other guys, media. They're not going to like what he has to do. You know, if he decides to not allow big pharma to advertise on media companies and we become like the other countries except for New Zealand, they were like, what are you doing? He has a lot of solid enemies, and he knows he lost his family that no longer want to talk to him. But what happens if he ends up...
kind of abandoned him.
Abandoned him already. But watch who he won, though. He won a big portion of the country that's sitting there saying, you know what? When I took that shot, I also kind of feel weird right now.
Yeah.
You know, I don't, because the level of intensity and criticism was very high when he first wrote that book about Fauci. Who is this guy? Who do you think you are? You're an environmental lawyer. Stay in your lane. You're not a doctor. He's a doctor. We have to listen to him. We're like, yeah, maybe they're right. Maybe you have to listen to him. And then you read the book, you're like, whoa, what did he do? And who used to take this LZT? You know, is it LZT? I think it's LZT drug for AIDS. And then Magic Johnson used to take it. And what else? He's the reason why they couldn't sell it at a discount. Like even a couple of days ago when Trump was talking, what did Trump say a couple of days ago? He says, why is Ozempic, $88 in UK, but it's $1,200 here in the States? He's asking those questions.
Yeah.
So now Trump's not a guy that wakes up in the morning studying the health and supplements and vitamins. That's not his space. He's definitely real estate. Not. He's media, right?
Yeah.
But now he's sitting there and asking a basic question. So a basic question like that carries a lot of weight because the average person can understand. Wait, how much is Ozempic in Europe? $88. Why is it $1,200 here? I don't know. I want to know. Great, let's go pursue it, right? So Bobby took the risk of asking the question that a lot of people were willing to ask. And because of that, he gained a lot of loyal followers that are with him now. Yeah. And what did that influence do to him? It got him in the White House with the second or the third biggest job we have.
Yeah. I noticed that he's actually surrounding himself with a really solid team. None of us in this space have an official role in the government, but what I appreciate about him is that he's asking the questions and also from the opponents, right? The pro-vaccine, the anti-vaccine, he's asking from, pharmaceutical companies to chemical manufacturers to grain suppliers to farmers, and he's sitting them down and he's saying, what we're doing is not working. How do we fix this? And when people cannot defend their position. Very often they'll use tonality or threats, or they'll just, you find that when you back somebody into a corner on facts or on the science, that's non-defensible. One of the things I've watched him do is slowly expose the lack of scientific research, rigorous scientific research that the vaccines should go through, just like every other pharmaceutical intervention. And then when you start to put the pieces of the puzzle together, wow, if you get on the vaccine schedule, that is a multi-$100 billion win. And if you get physicians like pediatricians to insist that the children stick to this vaccinated schedule, even though most of the time they're not looking at the research and saying, well, I wonder if, this hepatitis B vaccine, what's the chance of, hepatitis B? Oh, it's sexually transmitted. It's by IV drug use. We're just going to give it to the babies in the first few days or weeks of life. What's their risk of having a sexually transmitted disease or engaging in intravenous drug use? Zero. Right? We're vaccinating very often against zero risk. And I think that he's exposing that. And for someone like me who actually wants to put the entire power of my platform and my voice behind it, if you were in my shoe, do you go all in because this is something that you believe in, that you?
It's a good question. That's a personal decision. But I'll tell you, and I'll break it down for you why I think it's a personal decision. For me, the greatest experiences in life come with very high level of risk. So what are the most riskiest decisions we'll ever make in life? Marriage. Very risky, especially in America.
I made a really good choice.
Very risky, right? Some of us got lucky. Some don't. Some can do everything right. You marry a girl that you met at church and you've known her for 7 years at church and everything, and it still doesn't work out, and you're miserable, and you're not happy, and it's not working out. But what's the alternative risk? Staying single. That's a bigger risk. Why is staying single a bigger risk? Who are you going to come and talk to about your victories, about your challenges, about your issues? What are you building? You're building nothing. It's a solo team. The high of life being solo is not a high life of building something with a unit. Second risk, kids. How risky is it? Very. You're sending them to school. What they're going to be fed, what they're going to be brainwashed, what they could potentially happen. At any time, you're always thinking what they're doing. They're traveling. Are they good? Are they safe? For every kid that you have, you're always in two different places at the same time. So I'm either here and I got a kid, I'm at another place. You got 4 kids, you have 5 places at any given time. What is she doing? What is he doing? How taking care of him? What's going on with this? That's a risk, but flip it. I can't imagine, like my wife and I had 3 kids, and at one point she's like, I want to have a 4th. And we ended up having Brooklyn. Our 4th is Brooklyn.
Wow.
I can't imagine life without Brooklyn. I'm telling you, I can't imagine life having met Brooklyn. I can't imagine what life would look like without her, right? So kids is risky. Running a business, super risky. Creating a podcast, having an opinion, super risky. Every one of these things are extremely risky, right? But what is the flip side? If you start kind of talking about what you believe in and you ask the question in a respectful way, what ends up happening? See, when I think about guys who continuously won, there's a lot of people that will go viral for 1 year, and everybody that you're thinking this guy's going to go viral for the rest of his life. No, that's not how this works. Then some will go viral for 5 years, and after 5 years, they flatline. It's a lot of social media influencers, they flatlined. Some may go a decade, and then they flatline, right? I think there's only 3 performers that have a #1 hit in 4 different decades. I think it's Ray Charles, I think it's Sting, and maybe one other person that has a #1 hit in 4 different. You know how hard that is to do?
4 decades?
4 decades of a #1 hit. Like, you have to find a way to entertain a new generation. Your music is only good for that generation. Now you're doing it to this guy. Holy shit. So what is the hardest thing that artists have to do? Recreating yourself. Dude, that is not easy to do. You want me to recreate yourself? Yeah. What does recreation mean? Recreation means the old you is not good enough for this next level. Are you willing to go through that path? It's not easy. It's a very difficult thing to go through, to say, I was good for that level, but I am not good for this next level. And then you recreate, and you're going through the grind of not being that good, and you're getting, oh my God, boom. And then you're like, boom, I'm good enough for this level, and not only, I'm great for this level. Now do you want to go to the next level? Oh, here we go again. So this concept of recreating ourselves is a very difficult thing to go through. And when I went through it 4 years ago, trust me, everybody was, because I hadn't sold my insurance company yet. So everyone's like, listen, you go through this route and all of a sudden half your company agents leave. They're all 1099. They don't have to stay here selling insurance.
Right.
They can go to any other company. But we took the risk, and all of a sudden, millions showed up that were interested. And when we had to talk, we were like, whoa, where did you guys show up out of nowhere? Yeah, we're interested. Really? Yeah. Why? We're just interested. I didn't go to school for this. I don't have a 4-year degree for this. But we relate to it because we're like you as well. Okay. And we kind of feel that you're fair when your ability to reason and you're delivering your message. Okay, cool. Okay, sounds good. Well, good to meet you. Boom. And then there's that relationship, right? And then you got to do it again and again and again. And sometimes we think the success that got us here, it's always going to be there. It's not, man. This thing like this goes if you get too comfortable.
Hi guys, Gary here. I want to take a few minutes of your time to invite you to my Ultimate Human VIP community. This is a private community with front row seats to my most advanced health protocols, exclusive monthly Q&A calls, a private podcast where you can ask my guests and me your most pressing questions, and my own personal wellness blueprints, and everything you need to optimize your health. You'll connect with like-minded folks in this community. You'll get firsthand access to cutting-edge insights and enjoy special discounts on products that I trust the most. And here's the best part. Membership is just $97 a month, a fraction of the cost my private clients pay for the same deep dive guidance. If you're ready to supercharge your wellness and skip the guesswork, I'd love for you to join us. Head to theultimatehuman.com/VIP. That's theultimatehuman.com/VIP right now to become one of my Ultimate Human VIPs. This is your fast pass to better health, so don't miss it.
Now let's get back to the Ultimate Human podcast. You know what I found out wasn't widely available when we started our business. My wife and I, who's actually just my girlfriend at the time when we started our business, I left the insurance industry and I wanted to start this wellness practice. I remember I went home and I talked to my girlfriend, Sage. She actually just moved in with me, and I told her I quit my job and I wanted to start a functional wellness practice. And much to my surprise, she was all in, right? And she was a real estate agent. I was human biologist. Neither of us had opened a wellness clinic. We still needed to get a doctor. We had to build this business. But we actually were on board at the deck of the ship together. And I wish that I had a mentor that was giving me advice on going into business as a couple. There's a couple in the other room that's going through it right now. And I feel like I've become a sort of a side marriage counselor because I'm like, we literally went through everything that was supposed to tear you apart and somehow made it out the other side. But I'd be really curious to do, your advice too, because I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs are the solo entrepreneur. Right, either the man or the woman, but they're the solo entrepreneur, meaning they don't have their partner's not their spouse. Their partners are other men and women, and they're on this trajectory. Mm-hmm. And I think some ways, this is my myopic view of it, and that's actually more destructive to the relationship than trying to do something together. And what are your thoughts? What would be your advice to couples starting out in business together?
Yeah, listen, it's, first of all, if it's by choice is the most important. It can't be by force. Meaning, do you want to be in business with us? Do you want to do this together? I do. Great. Versus, I need your help. How come you never help me? And da-da-da-da-da. That's not going to work. Okay? So if it's by choice, that's filter number one. Number two, then there's got to be parameters created on what the relationship's like at work and then what we do at home. There's got to be respect. If we disagree with something, we call each other up privately, not publicly. Don't disagree with me publicly. Do it privately. You undermine me every time you do. Don't disrespect me and treat me like another person because you're not happy about the performance. Please do that to me privately. No problem. So those things are things to kind of understand that you have to, go through individually, where you create a certain guideline. Next, if it's project driven and you can find a way that, it's the level of accountability is coming from a vision that we're in pursuit of, that is a better way of going because, hey, babe, we're doing this for this. 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 At first, it normally starts off being an emotional partnership. excitement. We're going to change the world. We're going to work together, babe. It's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. And then when money comes in, and then it gets logical, accounting, IRS, taxes, technology, logic. Then it's like, it's just a business, and you lose the sizzle, and it's just a business partner that you go to sleep with. You know, and Trump talks about his first marriage. He says, you know, Melania used to have man, if I can find this clip, Trump explained it in a very, very good way.
Really?
Oh, my God.
Was he in business with his first wife?
Oh, first wife? You have to see how he explained this. The way he explained it about his first marriage, he says, Melania used to have a very gentle side about herself. And he says, I gradually watched her lose it. You have to see this, by the way. If I can find this clip, Robin, I text it to you. Maybe I've texted it to you before. I think I just found it. Is this the one? Oh, man, you have to see this. Because he explains, saying she used to be tender, she used to be easygoing, she used to be soft, and she lost it the moment she started doing business with me. She would tell me what to do, she would tell me this, and she would tell me that, and she would tell me this. And it was very important for us to not go through that. And I missed it. So the first marriage didn't work out. So a part of that, I mean, if I can find this, if I don't find it, it is what it is. I'll show it to you another time.
We'll find it, and I'll link it in the show notes if we can find it.
So, you know, he explains that part. But I think in marriage, if you can create those guidelines and you buy into a vision together and a dream together, and then you still find a way to have your date nights, you still find a way to get away, and you still find a system. Like we have a system. If we're at dinner, these things are away. Everybody, even our crew here, if we go to dinner together, we were where yesterday or 2 days ago? I don't know where we were.
Did you really?
We were in D.C. If we're in D.C., everybody at dinner sets their phone aside and we talk. We look at each other.
Wow.
We don't look at our phones. Nothing. Everybody sets their phones aside. So creating certain systems where the connection is there, I think that's the fighting chance. Because for me, I enjoy being in business. My wife's office is right next to mine. She's in the office every day. She's in the office today. If you come to my, after we're done here, we go to the other building and I'll show you the hangar. The other property is the real office.
Yeah.
And you'll see where it's at.
I saw the logo right in the lobby.
Yeah, it's very, very hard. But 10 out of 10 times, I would prefer it this way than a way where the wife stays home. She goes to the spa all day, tennis classes, and all this other stuff, and I see her at night. I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
I couldn't do that. Some people can do it. I like this. I like us working together. I enjoy it.
You know, I know that, you know, what was interesting was we felt like we were actually starting to age while we were building an anti-aging clinic, because just like exactly what you said, you know, it was all about the mission and the vision, and it still is. And then there's bills, and there's payroll, and there's inventory, and there's vendors, and there's a lease, and there's responsibilities, and you have to keep your credit up, and your bank account's going down, and the expenses are going up, and you've got employees that are relying on you, and you don't really understand all of the answers. Like, how do I make people walk through the door? How do I get the phone to ring? And if you have a bad day at the office, you have a bad day at home. If you have a good day at the office, you have a good day at home. I think the two are interconnected. I think people that say you can separate business from pleasure, especially if you're in business with your spouse or your private life from your business life, I think they're lying to you. I think you're probably going down the wrong path. But one of the things that we did was we made a very, very conscious decision. We said, this is the industry that we're going to serve, you know, and we're teaching people how to better their lives and live healthier, happier, longer, more fulfilling lives. If we're not doing that for ourselves, then how authentic is our message? And we made a conscious decision to begin to put ourselves first. We made militant about our diet, militant about our sleep. We actually started taking time for date nights. We started taking time for, we started scheduling travel into the calendar. What, if anything, have you done during your career to care for yourself? Do you have any biohacking trips? Do you have tips? Do you have any particular wellness habits that you do to keep your mind sharp, to keep your body sharp?
Yeah, so for me, I think when I broke down the basic systems, everything in my brain needs to be very simple for me to understand it. I need to simplify everything. So to me, there's 4 keys to success. You got to outwork your peers, but that's not enough. You got to out-improve, but that's not enough. You got to out-strategize, but that's not enough. And the last one, which is the most important one, is you got to outlast. Most people are not going to last. Most people will burn out. Most people get tired. Most people will give up. Most people, like, you know, Trump's being interviewed by Lex Friedman. And he's asking him a question. He says, what does it take to run for president? And what does it take to do this? He says, look, I have a lot of friends that are richer than me, but they don't know how to speak from stage. I have a lot of friends that are, more successful than me in this, but they can't handle the, negativity from the media. I have a lot of friends, he said, but they got tired. I have a lot of friends, and he's just kind of breaking it down. The guy's 78 years old, just campaigned one of the most complicated campaigns of all time.
Facing 900 years in prison.
And the guy is working tirelessly. The average 25-year-old watches this and says, how the hell are you able to do something like this, right? So that's the outlasting part.
And eat McDonald's and drink Diet Coke.
And he eats McDonald's.
But that defies my logic.
So that's his biohacking, but that's his biohack. His biohacking is
biohacking device from him.
The best picture is with him and Bobby Kennedy on the plane.
Oh, dude, it
and
killed
they're eating McDonald's, Big Mac, and Bobby's got this face like, he's looking like this, like, I can't believe I'm doing this, right?
Yeah. I mean, I was like, who was the aide that posted that? That dude needs to be fired.
Actually, that was the best because it's showing the fact, because Trump's got the biggest smile on his face. And
can
Bobby,
we see that?
Can you zoom in? Look at the smile on his face. And Bobby's like, I cannot believe I'm doing this, right? It's funny. It's hilarious, right? But the point when you're asking about,
he's got a full soda there too.
Yeah, he's got the whole
Bobby,
thing. I mean, listen, he got caught. They're seeing him there. But you're asking about biohacking. This is my basic rule. Since I was 14 years old, I've trained 3 times a week. Simple. I go to the gym. I'm gonna move my body and exercise 3 times a week since I was 14 years old.
Wow.
Okay. Now, from 14 to 25, it was 6 days a week because I was trying to compete to be Mr. Olympia.
Wow.
Now it's 3 days a week. Now I do, 4 or 5, but my goal, no matter what, I'm doing my 3 systems. Basic stuff I don't touch. I don't touch anything with cigarettes. I don't do any drugs. I'll smoke a cigar a month. When it comes down to drinking, I'll have a glass of wine or old-fashioned per month is what I'll do. I don't drink any soda. I stay away from food late at night that's going to get my belly to, blow up. I move my body regularly. I don't do energy drinks, what do you call it, Monster and stuff. I don't drink any coffee. The last time I had coffee, I was 25 years old. I haven't drank coffee since then. We hired a chef that came and opened up our pantry and went through all food that we didn't eat. About 2 years ago was the last time any one of our kids had cereal. We got rid of all the cereal. We got rid of so many different things with the kids. And my wife gets credit for this because my wife will go read the books to say, hey, we can't do this, we can't eat this, we can't do that. And so we made a commitment to that. So if you look at my vitamins-wise, I'm actually not good at taking vitamins. Sincerely, I'm terrible at it because I got 19 of them, 18 of them. Take this, take that. I'm like, dude, so many different things. I'm like, I'm not even interested in taking so many. So I'll take it one day. I'll miss it 3 days. But it's probiotics, omega, basic stuff. That's been the story of my life to get to where I'm at today. And sleep-wise, I'm probably not going to be the guy that's you're going to sit there and say, well, Pat gets all the sleep on this. I'll have many nights where I'm getting 4 to 6 hours of sleep when I'm driving and, hard charging, going through it. But once a week, I got to fill up the gas tank. So once a week, I'll get my 8 if I'm able to because my kids don't wake me up. But that's what's worked for me. I am not at the levels of some other guys. You see what they're doing. That's not me. But the most basic principles for me has worked for me since I was 14 years old, 3 days a week.
I love the fact that you're constantly talking about your wife and your kids and how your greatest success in life is actually having your family around you, actually building the business with the family legacy in mind at the inception, not figuring out how to create a legacy after you've already built the enterprise. I've also heard you talk a lot about the impact of social media on your kids. You most of the time referring to your daughters. What are some of the things that you do to kind of limit their exposure to social media or kind of curtail what they're going on without being the bad dad, the big Grinch?
It is tough. And I've talked to my wife, my nanny, and my dad, and I tell them, I'll have serious conversations with them. I said, guys, please do me a favor. I don't mind being the bad guy. Just prevent me for always being a bad guy. Don't always call me to be the bad guy. They're not going to take a shower. They're not getting up. They're not doing this. Why don't you find a better way to do it?
You better wait till your father comes home.
That's it.
My mom used to say that my whole life growing up. I hated it.
And I don't want to be that all the time. I'm very comfortable being it, but I don't want to be that all the time. So what is it? What does it mean to do? Our kids, I have a 13-year-old, 11-year-old son, 3-year-old daughter, right? Every one of my 13-year-old sons all have cell phones, smartphones. Every one of my 11-year-old all have cell phones, except for one. The 8-year-old, most of them have cell phones, except for 2 or 3. And then obviously 3-year-old is a 3-year-old. None of my kids have a cell phone. And the oldest is 13. They don't have a single cell phone, not a smartphone, not a cell phone, nothing. They don't have anything, okay? And so they're not accustomed to what it is to have a cell phone. It's very intentional. I read a book called, what is the name of the book, Rob? The one, what is the name of the book that has to do with cell phones and women and kids and girls that I always talk about? What is the name of that book? It was written by Jonathan Haidt. The moment you see it, you're going to be like, I can't believe we
Anxious Generation.
Anxious Generation.
Anxious Generation.
Have you ever read that?
No. But
Gary,
I believe just in the title, I'm going to love it.
Let me tell you, you will not be able to put this book down. I can't tell you how many times I've driven parents to read this book. He breaks down all these systems.
What's the overview of it say right there?
Go a little lower, Rob?
Yeah. The Anxious Generation, how they...
No, go to the right because he's trying to read it. There you go.
The Anxious Generation, how the great rewiring of childhood is causing an epidemic of mental illness. Well, I absolutely agree with that.
You're going to love this book.
Argues that the spread of smartphones, social media, and overprotective parenting have led to a rewiring of childhood. Man, I believe in that so much. You know what's so crazy is when I was growing up, it was funny. Like, we were actually allowed in the house. My parents wanted me to leave in the morning and come home in the afternoon or the evening. I mean, I had to be home by sundown. I mean, I lived on a farm. My parents owned 12 acres in the middle of a 300-acre tobacco farm. So it was woods, farm, streams. You couldn't get it.
What city? Where
at? South of Annapolis, Maryland, in southern Maryland. It was in Upper Marlboro, which is where Marlboro cigarettes came from, and all these. There were just thousands of acres of tobacco. I actually grew up cutting tobacco, which is the hardest labor you'll ever do in your life. But Maryland was one of the only flammable forms of tobacco. Now, I never smoked tobacco, never chewed tobacco, but I cut it as a crop when I was a kid growing up, which, by the way, if you ever cut tobacco, you will know one thing about the rest of your life. You do not want to cut any more tobacco. I don't give... rats behind how much money you can make doing this. I mean, you cut it in August, you walk through these 100-acre fields from one end to the other with a machete, chopping these plants, right? Pushing it over, chopping it, pushing it over, chopping it, pushing it over, chopping it. You plant the plants by hand, putting them single-handedly into this wheel that spins them around and sticks them into the ground. In August, you then have to take this tobacco, these sticks of tobacco plants, which will weigh about 60 or 65 pounds. You put 4 or 5 plants on there, and you put them on a wagon. You drive it into the barn, and then you climb up in the barn rafters, and you straddle these barn rafters. Now, mind you, you're like 4 or 5 stories, 6 stories off the ground. These were not built by certified OSHA engineers, right? There was no one with an engineering degree. It was just your neighbor with a hammer, and you're up against these tin roofs, and you literally have to pull these 65-pound sticks up and hang them, pull it up, hang it, pull it up and hang it. You hang one row, then you hang the next row until you get down to the base of the barn, and then it sits in there and dries, and it, because it's green when it starts and it's brown, and they tie it up and all this stuff. I don't know how we got on that subject, but hardest labor I would ever do in my life.
You anxious generation. Your parents ask you to go out and play and come back. Go out. Don't come home till sundown.
I would leave the house.
That's what he talks about in the book.
Yeah, I would come home at night. I mean, we're the last generation, you and I, that are even going to remember what it was like to grow up without cell phones and without iPads. I remember being overseas and just putting random coins of different sizes into a payphone, listening for that funny little tone, and then, some French voice. I was in Paris, some French voice to tell me I had a dial tone, and I didn't know how much time I had on the phone with my parents because it would just shut off, right? If you didn't put enough
That's so
coins
cool.
in.
I remember that as well.
Yeah.
No, but the book breaks it down, and one of the things he says, don't drop off your kids by school. He says, drop them off 10 minutes away and let them walk.
Yeah.
He says, when your kids are 16, 17 years old and you've given them cell phones, guess what? At 8 o'clock at night, get a safe, like a gun safe. And everybody at 8 o'clock, go put your phones in that safe.
That's
the
great.
systems, he explains systems. So to me, on the parenting side and the discipline, our kids are required to read 10 pages every day. They read every day. At 6 years old, you're required to read 10 pages. Now, of course, it starts off with basic books, and it works your way up. But
this is the Bet David house. This is
the Bet David household. Yeah, reading is the currency in our house is reading. That's the currency. You want to make money? Great. The currency in our house is reading. And that became a culture. Now, they all do it. If you can do it right with the first one, the other 3 is going to be easy.
Yeah.
The challenge is starting strong with the first one. And it's, look, I mean, I don't know how much of this is going to work in the next 4 years. We'll find out. But my oldest is obsessed with politics and Muay Thai. He loves kickboxing.
Politics and it's actually good that he can defend his political position. Yeah, it's great.
What did you say?
Kick you in the head.
He's going to kick you in the. The 11-year-old is sports, and the 8-year-old loves baking and stuff like that. And the 3-year-old, she can do whatever she wants to do at this point. But it's important.
That's how
family parenting is
too.
exciting. It's fun to do, but we'll see if we'll get it right in 30, 40 years.
Okay, I'll have you back on the podcast.
I look forward to it.
And we'll follow up on this.
I know you'll be around.
What are the top 3 reasons why I prefer a vertical cold plunge versus a lay down tub? Well, I've used both. When you're in a vertical position, your body naturally regulates your breathing better. So if you're holding on to the sides and you're in a vertical position, you can just focus on your breath work and you can stay calm. A lot of people feel more calm when they're in a vertical position than when they're laying down in the water and think they might slip under the water. So when you're vertical plunging, you're fully immersed faster. You can focus on recovery, inflammation reduction, and you're not struggling to just stay in a lie down position. Your body floats in an awkward way sometimes. So it's just a more efficient, comfortable experience, in my opinion. It takes up way less space too. It has a smaller footprint, so you can put these on your patio, your garage, your bathroom, your locker room. You can really put it anywhere. I've got one on my balcony. I've got 2 in my bathroom. So this is why Cold Life is my favorite cold plunge on the market. So click the link below and you can order yours today. Make sure you get the Ultimate Human version.
Now let's get back to the Ultimate Human podcast. You know, I find myself involved in the journey of so many entrepreneurs. I mean, there's sort of 2 times that they plead for me to come into their life. One is, you know, they're on their journey and something about their current state of health is interrupting their business journey. And they're usually not paying attention to it beforehand. They're paying attention once something becomes serious. You know, they went and got a cardiac exam, they found they had a blockage, or they get diagnosed with an autoimmune condition, or they just look in the mirror one day and they're like, holy cow, I'm 48, 50 pounds overweight. I don't even know how I slowly got here. And they'll, you know, solicit my help and we'll go on this journey together. But interestingly, as my message has grown and the caliber of people I interact with has grown, a lot of the entrepreneurs that I'm starting to find in my sphere are people that have actually had a big exit and now struggle with finding a purpose. And so I wonder if you might talk about that. Like, everybody talks about the journey. Nobody actually talks about the post journey, right? It's like, how do you find validity and how do you find...
So, dude, it's 2 years ago. I'm hosting my Vault conference. It's a conference we host every year. We had The Rock at the event this last year at Palm Beach Convention Center. We had Tom Brady at the previous one, and then we'll do next one at Gaylord.
I think I saw Tom's talk at your
thing, yeah. And then we're doing Gaylord Orlando this September. We'll have 12,000 people there in September. But 2 years ago, at one of the events, I'm walking around. Everybody gets this 200-page playbook that everybody fills in. It's very intense. So I see one guy is not filling nothing out. I said, "What are you doing, bro?" I said, "You bought a pretty expensive ticket here. What are you doing here?" I said, "Fill out the stuff." He says, "Look, I really need to talk to you." I said, "Go ahead, tell me what's going on." He says, "Pat, I sold my business a year and a half ago for $100 million. Never made this kind of money before. I've been married to my wife for 25 years. I said, "Where are you going with this?" He says, "I've gotten addicted to cocaine, and I've been with a lot of girls while I've been married to my wife. And she has no clue." I said, "Trust me, she knows." I said, "I'm telling you, she doesn't know." I said, "I'm telling you, she knows, okay? Because if it's a lot and you're doing drugs, she's going to see the behavior. When I've always seen you like this and you're calibrating around here and all of a sudden you're here, there's something that's going on that I'm not aware of."
Coming home on Friday night.
Yeah, you're going to be like, something's going on. This is not the pattern that you've always had. I said, "Well, how'd you get here?" He said, "My entire MO was to become rich, and I finally did it. And I afterwards, I was lost. I was like, what do I do?" I said, "How did you get into the cocaine and all this other stuff?" He says, "Well, I started making the kind of money. So we bought a house, and then this guy invites me over to his house. They got late poker night. And when I'm going to this late poker night stuff, the guy starts snorting cocaine after 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock. They just said, try one bump. I did, and I just got so caught up, and they would bring girls that night because the wives would be out, and I'm like, whoa, what is going on?" And then it turned into a thing, and I can't stop. I said, okay. When I was 27, 28 years old, every year I had 3 goals in place that I wanted to hit, and I would hit it. First one was paying off $49,000 of debt, sending my sister on a nice honeymoon, and getting my dad to go to Hawaii. next one, 3, next one, 3. When I hit $250,000 of income, I didn't have the next 3. And it was a flat year for me. I barely grew my income a little bit that year, but it was flat. Nothing exponentially grew. So I'm like, what is your next 3? You didn't have any. So then I realized, by far, one of the most important things for me is to make sure I'm always identifying my next. So a lot of times when people reach a milestone, this is why most Mr. Olympia champions, after they stop bodybuilding, they get divorces. Most professional athletes, after they stop playing, they get divorces.
Yeah.
This is a very common pattern because you've been in the hunt, you've been fighting, you've been a warrior, you've been this, you've been that, and all of a sudden you're home. You got money in the bank, you got the cars, and you're home. Now who's your enemy? Your wife's the enemy. You haven't had an enemy, so now you're picking on your wife. Dude, that's not your enemy. Get out there and do something. This whole concept of, I want to get rich and I want to stay home and I want to spend time with my wife and kids. God didn't create you and I that way. Never. This is a new 50-year-old thing about, I want to stay home and I want to raise my kids. God didn't expect that from men. What are you doing? Go out there and fight. I had a guy that came up and said, well, you know, I'm a great coach and that's what I want to do. And I'm like, dude, your kid is a couple months old, but you know, when you're in it, you're trying to be a good father, you're trying to be a good husband. You don't know if you're making the right decision or not. Men were created to be on the front lines, battle, building something, fighting for something. That's what we were created to do. The moment, I don't care how much money you got, the moment you stop doing that, you're going to break some shit. Normally, the first thing you break is your family. Wow. It's the first thing you break. We have to be in the arena. Yeah. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much money, cars, fame, everything you got. Nothing. If you're still able to bring value to a certain community, society, company, keep doing it. It'll be one of the worst things you can do to stop.
Wow, that is incredible advice. So, I know you, this is a lot of what you talk about, your sales training at Mar-a-Lago when you have this big sales training. What do you think, I mean, because you've been doing this so long, I mean, what do you think creates true sales leadership? I know that you try to build sales leaders, but I think a lot of what emerges in businesses, there's certain characteristics that are inherent in a person, and what I've found is that business just draws those out, right? I mean, it sort of amplifies. Like they say, money, draws out the personality. I saw Bill Cosby years ago had a funny little stand-up thing, and he talked about his buddy was like, yeah, you should smoke weed. And he goes, why should I smoke weed? And he goes, because it enhances your personality. And Bill Cosby goes, what if you're an asshole? It was just kind of funny because it's so true. You don't want to enhance that. So, I feel like there's, it's certainly drawn out things in me, like it's reeled my purpose to me. And I'm so passionate about what I do and I really feel fulfilled. And I've seen the same come out in my wife. But what draws out sales leadership? Like what creates true sales leaders?
Good question. So for me, when it comes down to this, great sales leaders, there's 3 skills. There is the one-on-one skills, guys who are very good one-on-one, where you can sit down with one of your guys and talk to them and get the best out of them. What are you going through? I notice your activity is down. What are you driving for? What are you going after? How are you doing with calls? Let's role play. Tell me how you ask this question. How do you ask for referrals? How do you overcome that objection? One-on-one, and you're able to tug their heart when you're talking to them, but it's a one-on-one, nobody else is in the room. It's a very special, it's by far the most important skill set, the one-on-one skill set. Then you have the 1 to few. So 1 to 5, 1 to 10, 1 to 20, that's 1 to few. And then you have 1 to many, 1 to 100, 1 to 1,000. That's a different skill set. Most people think the skill set that matters the most is the 1 to many. It's not. The most important skill set of a great sales leader is 1-to-1.
Really?
No, by the way, it is not even close. Wow. Because if you're not good at 1-to-1, you won't be good at 1 to few, and you will never get a chance to be good at 1 to many. You have to get very good at the 1-to-1, where you can sit down, nobody is around, and you're able to look at the person eyeball to eyeball, kneecap to kneecap, and they can sit there and say, I think this guy cares about me. He's asking the right questions. He's triggering certain behaviors that I'm not doing. He is challenging me, but I feel like it's coming from a good place. I'm willing to go out there and improve. This sounds good to me. So then knowing the drivers, knowing the markers, knowing what moves this type of personality versus that type of a personality, understanding that some people are driven by madness. They want to compete. They want to break records. Some people are driven by checklists. What is the next thing I need to do? So you always have to give them a checklist. Some people are driven by lifestyle, cars, dreams. Some people are driven by purpose. We're correcting an injustice. We're going to save people. We're going to change people's lives. Those things is knowing how to poke. And some of the best leaders know how to poke better than others.
And so the one-on-one skill set, I mean, is that like something that people inherently have? How do you develop it, and how do you raise their level of confidence? Or, I'll tell you, for example, my son and I launched this company, this hydrogen tablets, and we actually are going on stage this week in front of 5,500 people. For me, it's not an issue at all. I'm actually looking forward to seeing the crowd. I'm really looking forward to engaging with them. I'm really looking forward to adding value to them. But he is crippled with fear about walking on that stage and addressing
the
crowd. Yes.
Okay.
Now, he is an unbelievable communicator. He is incredibly intelligent. He's physically fit. He's an athlete. He's well-spoken, he's super articulate, and he's good at the one-on-one. In fact, I actually take a lot of business advice from him, and
oh my
he's
God.
my middle child.
Let me tell you, the best speakers in the world are the ones who they can get on stage and talk to 1,000 people, but they're able to talk to them as if they're one person. If you really want to persuade and influence people, talk to a massive audience as if there's only one person in the room. Don't say, you guys. You. Talk to one person. Make it seem like you're having a cup of coffee with the person. If you can do that, you'll persuade. You'll connect.
Wow.
If you go up there trying to think you're speaking to a massive audience, they're not paying attention to you. Just go talk as if you're talking to one person. The best speakers on stage are the ones that you all of a sudden you're like, you know what happens? Like it's in a movie where everybody disappears. It's just you and the other person in the room. Now, there's 5,000 people in the room, but there's not 5,000 people in the room the way you see it. No one is there. It's just locked in.
Wow.
And because that person is speaking to me. What's the biggest thing in debates they say? The best guys that were the best debates were the ones that understood. Go like this.
What do you mean?
Talk to the camera. The people at the house that are sitting there. Go straight to the camera. Don't think always with the audience that's in their debate. Go straight to the one-on-one. Okay. Go straight to the audience that you're talking one-on-one. If you can do that, the voter will say, yeah, that's the best debaters.
Yeah.
I'm sitting at home, I'm having dinner with my wife and kids, and all of a sudden I see you're making eye contact. Baby's talking to us, look at him.
Yeah.
So if your son can just focus on one person, you're talking to one person at that place. And if you can speak as if you're talking to one, you'll talk to everybody.
Love that, man. I'm actually going to hopefully get this video to him in time, because I think the world of him and his fiance, they've really built this business together, and they deserve that time to be recognized for it. My daughter, his older sister, has no fear of public speaking, and my youngest hasn't had a chance to do it yet either. But I would really want to see my son, step into that role, conquer that fear, because it's right up there with deep water and sharks and fear of heights and everything else.
I guarantee you, none of the people in the audience have ran 185 miles in 5 days.
No, that's true.
So whatever he's going to tell, he's got moral authority to talk about it.
Patrick, I could go on and on and on, man, with you for hours and hours and hours. I super appreciate you coming on the podcast today. I wind down all of my This is like a new angle for my audience too. Normally we're just hardcore into the biohacking, anti-aging, longevity. I think this is going to really resonate incredibly well with my audience, because everybody has the same fears and aspirations. But I end every podcast by asking my guests the same question. And there's no right or wrong answer to this question. But what does it mean to you to be an ultimate human?
What does it mean to be an ultimate human?
It's trademarked, by the way.
So if... It's trademarked. I was about to say something that we talked about on my podcast. I'm just going to keep it civil here. No, what I would say is the following. If to me, I'm 75 years old and I have all the success and everything, I don't care what I have. If my kids still want to be around me and their kids want to be around me, I am an ultimate human. If I'm able to use my God-given abilities to make anywhere I go a better place, whether it's city, company, country, church, directly or indirect impact, I'm an ultimate human. If I'm able to make my parents proud, whether they're here with me or not, just to be able to amplify the last name, the heritage where I come from, I'm an ultimate human.
Wow.
That's how I view that.
That's amazing,
So
man.
I think all the other stuff is, you know,
superfluous.
It's secondary. Those three is what matters to me.
That's amazing. Patrick, appreciate you, brother. Where can my audience find you if they want to find out more about you?
I mean, you can go to PBD Podcast, Valuetainment, or you can download the app Minect and ask any questions from me or Gary on Minect, Minnect, Minect.
You got it, brother. Until next time, guys, that's just science.